Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So today is a really perfect study day before a row of rainy days are coming. So I'm having a car ride to the countryside and I'm gonna sketch a pumpkin field before they get harvested for Halloween. So it's pretty late in the afternoon and the pumpkin farm is closed. But I asked the owner's permission to sit on the side and sketch this cute view of pumpkins before they get harvested the next day. And as I was about to start my sketch, I saw a lot of Canadian geese passing by the sky, and they're forming these interesting patterns while they're flying. They look so cool. Okay, so before I start putting pen on paper, I actually took a few minutes to think about how I want to compose this page. So I just drew the horizon line very high on the paper because I want to focus on the large area of pumpkins below. So this part is really important. If I drew the horizon line in the middle, then this picture is going to look kind of not as interesting. And now I'm building on this farmhouse on the horizon line. So I already envisioned the size and placement of this farmhouse before I start putting pen on paper. So I'm not drawing way too big or too small. And now I'm just adding these windows and color them with solid black to give more density to the house. Just adding the rooftop details with very simple parallel lines. And now I am keep building on some more house structures beside this farmhouse. I think there's another little house beside it, a barn or something. Just focus on the very simple geometric shapes. And then adding this tree in the middle between the two houses. Some more trees and bushes around. Just focusing on the contour outline of trees and bushes. And then adding these electric poles on the roadside. I think those electric poles are really adding a sense of perspective. And now I'm just drawing the simple contour of the mountain in the distance. Adding more tree forms in the distance too. Okay, I think the background elements are done. Now I want to focus on the foreground, the field of pumpkins. Starting with the pumpkins in the far distance, using very simple arcs. A lot of these pumpkins are being covered by bushes and grass. And they're not in full round shapes, but in arc shapes. Drawing very quickly. Not trying to match exactly the same because there's so many pumpkins. As you can see, I drew the pumpkins in the distance way smaller than the ones in the middle. This is the basic idea of perspective. The objects in the distance look much smaller than the ones in the foreground. And using very organic lines to show the grass in the field. And taking a quick break so you can have a look over my shoulder while I'm drawing. Adding more pumpkin forms and grass, using different types of organic lines like dashes, curvy lines, and adding more pumpkins in the middle ground. They're in different positions. I think the veins are being cut because the farmer is going to collect them tomorrow. I think all of the veins are being cut already. The pumpkins are getting larger, closer to the foreground. I'm also adding the surface textures for those pumpkins too. Lots of overlapping. So here I'm not worried about the exact placement of each pumpkin. So trying my best to draw as many as I can. I think the most important thing to make this picture look right is to make the pumpkins that's closer to me larger, the ones in the middle a little bit smaller, and the ones in the far distance much smaller. This is the way that we make a picture look right. It's not the exact placement, but it's more about the sense of perspective. Drawing this pumpkin field actually takes a lot of patience, lots of observation skills, and of course, like understanding of perspective. Okay, so now I think I'm done drawing most of the pumpkins. Now I'm drawing the grass in between each pumpkin. So try to relax and use very natural lines, just like the way I handwrite. So as I mentioned before in my previous videos, if we can handwrite with a pen, then we can draw. The drawing experience is very similar to writing. We're using very simplistic and abstract lines to suggest reality. I think one of the purpose of drawing is to simplify what we see instead of copying what's really out there. And I think this process of translating what we see into these abstract forms takes years of practice, observation. And yeah, we can't really get it overnight. I also think that no technique is really for beginners. Some very easy techniques. It looks easy, but it actually took the artist many years to translate what he or she sees into something that simple. The process is actually not that simple. I am drawing these corn stalks on the very foreground, very close to my feet. I think these corn stalks are adding a great sense of variety compared to the pumpkins. I feel like that these leaves look like they're dancers, very cheerful and inviting. Okay, and now I'm just adding some final details for the pumpkin field using multiple lines in one and other certain areas to accentuate the shade of grass to bring out that the dimension of the pumpkins sitting in a field. And hatching lines like these are also adding a sense of energy, a sense of growth for the field. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. And here is my setup in the field. My watercolor palette is ready and my finished line sketch laying on the rock. And here's the look of the field right now. The evening sunshine is covering the pumpkin field and some nice shadow here. So when painting a landscape, I always like to paint the sky first. So as you can see, I'm wetting the sky area first with clear water by squeezing my water brush. So the sky area is wet, and now I'm laying a mix of green and blue, so it's a nice turquoise color. If you look at the evening sky very carefully, they're not that intense blue, but the turquoise color, and very watery and translucent. And just let the sky be and not overstir it. Now I'm adding ultramarine blue for the mountain in the distance. Okay, so now I'm ready to paint the first layer for the field. I'm wetting the whole field with clear water and adding medium yellow mixed with a little bit orange. This part is really important. This is kind of like an underpainting. It really helps to accentuate the atmosphere of the evening sunshine laying on the field. Okay, so instead of moving on to paint the pumpkins directly, it's really important to have an underpainting like this to help establish the feel of the evening sunshine. And wet on wet, some verdant green mixed with a little bit yellow ochre for the grass and the dried grass. Yellow ochre here and there. Yellow ochre mixed in with a little bit orange. There's quite a variety of colors to see. Dark brown directly from the Etchr paint palette. For the earth. And verdant green mixed with yellow ochre for the corn stalks in the foreground. Directly wet on wet, mixing some verdant green very loosely. Painting nature is really important to keep it loose so it's lively. Okay, so I'm gonna let the field dry a bit. Now I am painting the tree and the bushes and the farmhouse in the distance while waiting for the field to dry. Just adding the colors that I see and feel. Again, very loosely. I'm not over stirring, the areas. That's it for the first layer. And another quick break for you to see how I'm sitting and sketching in the field. Okay, here comes the exciting part. It's time to paint the pumpkins. So I just grabbed some orange directly from my Etchr watercolor palette and just lay this color on. Very simple. Not doing any very complex mixings. Just lay this vibrant orange on there. One after another. Now they're starting to glow. And keep going. Just punch the color on and don't worry about the exact precise coloring like doing a coloring book. Just keep it really loose. Okay, so here's another video shot of me while I'm painting the pumpkins. And the lighting on the pumpkin field is changing. A lot of shadow part is coming because it's really late in the afternoon. Just taking my time. Okay, so after finishing the orange color of the pumpkins, now I'm ready to add the shade color. So basically this is kind of like a brown color. The sunshine comes from my left hand side, so the right hand side of the pumpkins are in shade. So now I'm just adding this medium brown color, not way too dark. Because the sunshine is so strong, the shadows are not that intense. Just a little bit here and there. Again, it doesn't have to be super precise. I'll try my best to get all of the pumpkins. And now I am mixing this green with verdant green and yellow ochre to give a second layer for the veins and leaves and grass, all the green parts. Let's try to build up density for the green part. The greens and orange color is very nice contrast, warm and cold colors. So as you can see, I'm using pretty simple brush strokes of different pressures and sizes. The same brush, when we press it, lighter or harder, it produces different kinds of brush strokes, different shapes of brush strokes. And we can also change the direction of the brush strokes from vertical to horizontal. So there's a great variety of expression that we can produce with one single brush. Adding some more orange for that tree in the distance, and also green, shade of green on the right hand side to show a contrast of light and shade. Some more darker green for the trees in the distance. Some dark blue shade for the farmhouse and other farm structures. Another layer for those little trees. Okay, so now I'm mixing a really intense green by mixing in burnt sienna into the green, so the green turns more intense. It's very important to get the foreground part more intense. Things that are closer to the viewer should be stronger in look compared to the ones in the distance. We can use more intense colors. Adding a bit of more shade brown for the dried grass near and far. Using tiny little brush strokes to add some final details. Some teeny tiny brown shade for the pumpkins, using very small careful brush strokes to give even more detail for this sketch. Okay, and finally I decided to add that piece of cloud floating on top of the mountains. So it's a mix of ultramarine blue and a little bit pink purple. Pretty solid shape. Some final polish for that mountain there, a little bit stronger. It's ultramarine blue. That's it. And here's the look of my finished sketch. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you liked my video, please click like and leave me a comment below. Any questions or suggestions, just leave me a comment. And subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. I will see you very soon next time.